Diego Maradona. Now there's a name. To millions, he was basically a footballing god. But to others, a flawed genius who, let's be honest, bent the rules whenever he could. He could inspire just absolute devotion and, at the same time, crazy controversy, sometimes in the very same game. So how do you even begin to make sense of a guy like that? Well, let's try to unpack the story of the man they called El Pibe de Oro, the Golden Boy.
And really, that's the big question when you talk about Maradona, isn't it? It's not really about picking a side. It's about trying to understand how one person could be, well, both of these things at once. His whole career is like this masterclass in duality, and there's one game, just one single game, that puts it all on display perfectly.
You see, this one game basically tells his entire story in just 2 moments. On one side, you have the infamous hand of God. A totally blatant handball that the ref just missed. Then on the other side, just a few minutes later, you get the goal of the century, an act of just pure, mind-blowing genius. And both of these happened in the same match against England in the '86 World Cup quarterfinal. It's the game that would define him forever.
All right, so let's dive deep into that one single history-making match. Let's try to figure out how both of these moments could possibly come from the same guy.
So get this, these were the only 2 goals Argentina scored in that 2-1 win. One was, an act of supreme cheating or gamesmanship, depending on who you ask. The other? Pure genius. But to really get why this was so huge, you have to remember the timing. This was just 4 years after the Falklands War. So for Argentina, beating England wasn't just about soccer. No way. It was this deeply emotional, symbolic thing. And Maradona, he delivered that victory for them, using both his cunning and his brilliance. It's the perfect snapshot of the man. He would do absolutely anything to win.
And oh boy, did he win. That 1986 World Cup, it was his tournament, plain and simple. He captained Argentina all the way to victory, got named the best player, and basically cemented his place as a national hero forever. Look at the stats. Over his whole international career, he earned 91 caps and scored 34 goals. But it was that performance in '86 that really made him immortal.
But, this on-field magic wasn't just for his country. In his club career, all that talent translated into, well, a whole lot of money.
So in 1982, he makes the move to a European giant, Barcelona, for a world record fee of £5 million. Now you gotta understand, back then, that was an absolutely staggering amount of money. It was the moment he became a true global superstar. But believe it or not, that wasn't gonna be the last time he made headlines like this.
Yep, just 2 years later, he did it again. He moved to Napoli in Italy for £6.9 million, shattering his own world record. Think about that for a second. To be the first player in history to set the world record transfer fee twice, well, that tells you everything you need to know about his status in the game. He was on another level. And you know what? It was right there, in Naples, where the legend of Maradona was about to reach its absolute incredible peak.
See, before Maradona showed up, Napoli was, well, they were a historically overlooked club, kind of an underdog. With him, they became champions of Italy for the very first time, ever. He wasn't just a player there, he was a savior to the entire city. He single-handedly lifted that team and gave a whole region this incredible sense of pride and victory they'd never felt before.
And just to prove it wasn't some lucky fluke, he went and led them to a second league title 3 years later. To this day in Naples, Maradona is still treated like a god. He took them to heights they could have only dreamed of. But even at the absolute peak of his powers, that other, darker side of his life was never too far away.
Yeah, because as his fame and success got bigger and bigger, well, so did the troubles in his life off the pitch.
And just like that, the fairy tale came to a very dark, very abrupt end. After years of battling addiction, his time in Naples was over. He got slapped with a 15-month ban for testing positive for cocaine.
It's such a tragic irony, isn't it? The very same city that worshipped him like a king was also the place that presented the temptations that ultimately led to his downfall there. His departure from Napoli, that really marked the end of his peak as a player.
But Maradona's life in the world of football was far from over. He moved into management, and let me tell you, his coaching career was every bit as wild and unpredictable as his playing days.
Just look at this journey. His coaching career was this chaotic, globe-trotting adventure.
Sure, he never hit the same heights as when he was a player, but he brought that classic Maradona passion to every single role. He coached his beloved Argentina at the World Cup in 2010, then he popped up in the UAE, then Fujairah, he even became chairman of a club in Belarus of all places, all before a final, really emotional return home to coach in Argentina.
So, after all of that, the highs, the lows, the absolute madness, how does history ultimately judge his talent on the field?
Well, despite all the controversies, his genius on the ball it's undeniable. As recently as 2022, the huge football magazine 442 ranked him as the third best player of all time. And that really shows you something, right? For a lot of people, what he did on the field, that pure artistry, it just overshadows everything else.
And get this, even more recently, in 2024, the International Sports Press Association voted him the second-best footballer of the past 100 years. The only person ahead of him? Pelé. So the consensus is pretty clear. He belongs right up there, in the absolute highest tier of the sports legends.
And I think this quote from one of his rivals, the French legend Michel Platini, just sums it up perfectly. He said, "He was capable of things no one else could match. The things I could do with a football, he could do with an orange." It wasn't just about the goals. It was about this magical, almost supernatural connection he had with the ball that no one else could touch. He just made the impossible look routine.
So genius or villain? You know, maybe the real answer is he was both. And that leaves us with one last big question. When an artist creates something that's truly beautiful, something that brings joy to millions of people, does that art somehow forgive the flaws of the artist? When it comes to Diego Maradona, I think that's a debate that will probably go on forever.